This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about beyond borders. And we have a special guest who specializes on this topic. Somebody who has dedicated her life and who has so many experience around the world. Her name is Clare Overmann. She is the CEO of Association of International Education Administrators. We're going to talk about higher education, international education, and also collaboration at a global level. Clare, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me, AZ.
You've been traveling, you've been very busy, but you carved out time on behalf of my audience and myself. I want to thank you for being here.
Always, no worries. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Me too. For people who may not know you, can you give us a 60-second, who is Clare, your origin story, what you're passionate about?
Sure, absolutely. I'm Clare. I am the CEO of AIEA, as you mentioned earlier. This is the Association for International Education Leadership. It is the professional home for those who are leading and strategizing about global engagement and internationalization at their higher education institutions or organizations or even in the government. I am a lifelong cultural enthusiast. From as early as I can remember, I was really passionate about being a person who existed in this big world, somebody who wanted to always learn more about other cultures, other people, other languages. So really spent a lot of my early years exploring all of that and deepening my knowledge about the world. And I'm lucky enough to be able to be in this profession where I get to do that every single day.
You have a very interesting career, and I want to know the defining moments when you moved from the Netherlands in a different industry to higher education. Do you remember those defining moments in your career when you made the shift?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so much that is deeply personal, both related to that curiosity that I mentioned before about the world, also the curiosity about myself, and also a lot about people and the people in my life. So I was adopted actually from South Korea by American parents when I was 3 months old. So I've grown up always in this culture, kind of cross-cultural way of being an American girl, but with South Korean roots. And my adopted family, we actually have very deep Irish roots as well. So I always say I'm 100% American, 100% Korean, 100% Irish. And so, that curiosity about where I come from in this very global sense led me to a bunch of different places. And certainly Korea was one of them, to see kind of my heritage. We traveled as a family to Ireland also to see that part of my heritage. And I really think that implanted in me this very deep desire to just see other places. I did study abroad back in Korea. I did a study abroad to Chile. And in those experiences, met somebody from the Netherlands who I then followed and started my post-college career working in the Netherlands. And if for anybody who's tried to work in the EU, if you don't have a working permit, you can't actually really work. So I was lucky enough to be sponsored by a multinational petrochemical company to work in their accounts payable department, and was able to secure a role that to me was one of the most incredible international experiences of my life. And I was working alongside people from all across the world, speaking in all different languages. And this was a huge turning point for me, having kind of just studied abroad and been like a foreigner in other countries, to really trying to assimilate into society and be a part of that life. That ultimately did lead me to go want to study international education as a profession. But that was a real, pivotal turning point of, even though I wasn't doing the work of international education, I was working in this very international environment that made me realize this kind of stuff, this kind of work is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life.
When I look your career, like you said, after you made the shift from the petro industry to higher education, I could see dedication, commitment. You're passionate about international education. Do you remember the time when you said, you know what, higher education is my calling?
Honestly, I think I realized more before I realized higher education was my calling. I realized that mission-driven work, the nonprofit sector in particular, that's something that really drove me. I loved working at this multinational petrochemical company, and like I said, it was a really pivotal moment for me in my career. But it also helped me understand and kind of reaffirm in my life that I wanted to work in a more kind of mission-driven industry. And that actually, these were the early days of Googling things. And I just Googled the things that I felt spoke to me. And those words were international, and then education. I know I like education. I know I like international. And lo and behold, international education was a degree one could study. And so I applied to those programs, and it kind of led me into this higher education space, because that's where a lot of the education abroad and international student services and partnerships were happening. So it was, just a fairly natural progression. But now I can safely say that higher education is one of my key areas.
Very interesting. You already shared with us your crossing of different cultural boundaries, the US, Netherlands, Ireland, and South Korea.
Yeah.
Your exposure to different cultures, you cross-pollinating with different cultures, how much that shaped you and also the way you see the world?
Oh, it's everything. And I think even for people who haven't traveled the world, when you really reflect on kind of how you see things or the experiences that you've had, we're dealing with cross-cultural issues and being part of an intercultural society all of the time. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be between borders. I believe that we all carry within us some innate culture, some that we are born with, some that we acquire, and some that we, are seeking in our lives. And it's that mixture of culture that I think makes life fascinating. It makes relationships that much deeper. And I just think it makes the world a more interesting place, not to mention a safer place. So when I think about all these cultures coming together, what I've learned when I was in Chile, the things that I've felt and learned when I've been in Korea, the way I attempted to assimilate in the Netherlands, at all these different places that I've been able to go and soak in some of these experiences, I think what it has taught me is the kind of the smallness of the individual and how big this world really is. At the same time, how alike we all are. That there are these core things that we all have in our lives. There are people, there are children, there's birth, there's death, there's jobs, there's love, there's loss, that we feel a lot of the same things despite our cultures. But that the fascinating part is understanding how each culture kind of manifests all of those things throughout a lifetime. So I'm so grateful for those opportunities, because it has made life that much richer and more rewarding for me.
Yeah, I share your experience because I crossed not like you everywhere. You were in South America, in Europe, Asia. You've been in many places that I have never been. But for me, coming to the United States, crossing a different culture completely changed my perspective. I would say I have changed for good. I could be able to see that even if we're different outwardly in terms of our race, gender, color, and so on, culturally, we have so many things in common, like you said, and it increases your faith into humanity. It enables you to believe that you could work with others, because more than what you are different with them, you're more like them. And that increases your appetite to collaborate with them, to work with them. And I'm glad that I crossed cultures, and I'm glad that you also have that positive experience in terms of crossing cultures. I want to ask you one more question. If in case there are people who may still misunderstand the role higher education plays, especially leaders like yourself, do you know any one or a couple of misunderstandings, misconceptions about international educators like yourself? And sometimes you wish, saying that, I wish if they knew this about us, about global educators, international educators.
Oh, that's such a great opportunity. We are often misidentified or misunderstood just because the term international education isn't necessarily a household term, and the profession itself isn't like a lawyer or doctor or teacher. If we had to be put in a bucket, I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, are you a teacher?" And technically not, although I do think that we are always educating people about what we do, and education is at the core of what we do. But really, what international educators and international education does is tries to think about how we function as how we function in higher education, in particular in my field, in higher education, in a global way. How global things, people, institutions, partners, concepts can be infused into the higher education sphere. And that could be in the form of a study abroad program for a student, let's say here in the United States, who wants to go abroad. It could be in the form of welcoming international students or professors to the United States or to your country to have an experience. It includes partnerships between institutions and other entities, as well as globalizing or internationalizing the curriculum, making sure that within the curriculum at an institution, global concepts and examples are infused into that work, so that when your students come out of a college or university experience, that they have this global perspective that is not only helping them to transition into careers that are more and more global in nature, but also kind of infusing these concepts and attitudes and skills that come with a global education, like dealing with ambiguity or working in teams or communicating well or being patient. All of these kinds of skills that are also necessary to thrive in a 21st century career context. So this is what we're trying to do in international education. The terms international education are somewhat interchangeable with global education, internationalization, global engagement. And a lot of those you'll see kind of all infused together. Some distinctions there, but I'd say they're all within the same circle.
Especially, I see some pushbacks, and they relate international education with globalization. I see some pushback. Do you think international higher education collaboration is the level where you expect? If not, what does it take to create and build sustainable academic collaboration based on mutual benefit to fuel innovation, creativity, and of course, taking human civilization to the next level?
Well, I'm happy you said that. I mean, that is the whole point of all of this, is the embetterment of the human condition and to improve the lives of the human race. The fact of the matter is, these collaborations are happening all the time, everywhere, whether we like it or not. I think since the beginning of higher education, there has always been partnership and movement between people and the sharing of knowledge and ideas. None of the scientific advancements that we enjoy today would have happened without these collaborations, because science and knowledge and the pursuit of scientific truth has always been something that is shared between people across borders. So I think that the world we live in right now is particularly challenging. We are seeing, what many call a polycrisis of lots of different types of conflict and challenge all over the world, whether it's natural disasters or war, political conflict, poverty, of course. But it happens to be also one of the most fruitful times for international academic collaborations. And what has really struck me from the last year is that at a time when we're seeing a lot of different challenges across higher education around the world, most people I talk to in the higher education sector are doubling down on their partnerships. They're exploring new partnerships. They are investing in these relationships that I think they know are going to carry them well into the future. It's not something that anybody goes into thinking that it's a quick fix, that it's going to yield anything tomorrow. But these investments are so critical for making sure that this whole kind of experiment, this whole ecosystem of global higher education, that it exists well into the future, and that it's that much stronger because we've developed these partnerships. So I'm so thrilled to see that these kinds of collaborations and partnerships are still ongoing and even growing despite all the challenges we know we have in this world.
Yeah, it gives sense. If you think about the challenges that we are facing as humans, yeah, we have borders. Yes, we have nationalities and so on. We have top priorities for our nations, for our culture. But if you think about major challenges we all face, think about, for example, AI is a challenge. Yes, it's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge which requires collaboration. If you think about climate challenge that we have, if you think about deadly diseases, how can we battle them individually? It's not really effective.
Right.
We need to collaborate to tackle some of these deadly diseases, these global challenges that we're facing, and coming together in collaboration. And the best platform is education, because people come to that platform to learn, to grow. And I think people who come to higher education, they are humble, they're curious, they want to learn. And if you want to learn, you want to cross borders, you want to learn what the other peoples from other cultures are learning. And I'm glad that your platform, your association, is creating that kind of platform where higher education institutions, professionals, and leaders collaborate.
Absolutely. And I think what I love especially about scientific research and those kinds of collaborations is, in many cases, you're just trying to find the best partner who has the best knowledge or experience or access to the things that you need in order to pursue these scientific endeavors. You don't care what part of the world they're in. And in many cases, it's really important that they're in a different part of the world, because
Yep.
that diversity of perspectives actually helps the knowledge creation. Maybe even you're trying to research a very specific environment or ecosystem that can only be found in another part of the world. And you just don't have access to that at your home institution or in your home environment. So yeah, we are absolutely an interdependent species, and higher education has really tapped into that in a more formal way.
Yeah, if you think about it, we don't have all the resources. We don't have blank check. Yeah, I may have equipment, I may have certain materials, but I need other resources from other
Yes.
institutions. And also, if you think about, there are some specialities in terms of cultures and places, and some of the challenges that we're facing, they better be studied and researched in certain parts of the world. And therefore, we are interdependent, and I appreciate what you do. Since I mentioned about AI as a challenge, which should be addressed globally by the global community, and higher education could play a role of roles in terms of tapping into AI and also overcoming future challenges that may come from AI. Have you thought about how AI may impact your work, your international education platform work, and also higher education as a whole? Do you think that human teachers and classrooms, the way they are, the conventional way will continue, or do you anticipate a totally different world, let's say in 5, 10 years?
Oh my goodness, it's a big question. I really respect all of the experts around the world who are grappling with this question right now, and it is the question of our time. It is the maybe even a bit of a moral panic of our time of what's going to happen. Are the robots going to take over? Of course, we know that's not true. This is another iteration of technological advancement. One that we have been seeing over the last number of years. I think humans are never going to be replaced, and we have to figure out and embrace the parts of education that really do depend on humanness and humanity. I think we're going to be seeing that much more, that it has to be a partnership and a balance between what we can accomplish with AI and what can only be done through the work of a human, which includes really important skills that we learn through education, especially higher education, such as critical thinking, asking questions, reasoning, judgment. All of the compassion that comes with education as well. So I think there's going to be a great moment to start really kind of doubling down on embracing the things that AI will never be able to replace, as well at the same time embracing this amazing kind of miracle of technological advancement that is going to help improve human life in many ways. We're going to have to do it responsibly. We're going to have to do it with open eyes. People who have much better expertise than I do are going to have to lead the way. But I see it as not a kind of zero-sum game of, it's either us or them. It's going to have to be this partnership of understanding even more what we bring to life and this kind of human condition. Another thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's been interesting to see, though, how we've been embracing it within the international higher education ecosystem. There's, on a practical level, I think it's been amazingly helpful in a lot of ways. Everything from just kind of automating and helping out with a lot of the more rote aspects of jobs, things that can relieve your average worker to do more things that require a little more creative thinking. Also, amazing things related to cultural and career services. So I've seen some great examples of using AI to help students practice with interviews. And it could be in other languages, it could be in other cultures, practice their kind of things related to education and the continuation of their careers. And then another topic that we've really talked a lot about in our field is just not necessarily the use of AI, but the fact that students these days, Gen Z and beyond, they have to understand it. This is a part of their education, not only how to use it, but how to think critically about it. It is a fact of life right now. It's a fact of all of our lives. So we have to be able to teach our students how to use it responsibly, how to use it really effectively, actually, and make the most of this tool.
Yeah, I agree with you. I share your optimism. I know there are people who are doomsday kind of people who are just scared how AI gonna destroy work, jobs, and even destroy humanity. They're afraid. I understand it's scary. Past generations, they were scared of so many technology advances, but I share your optimism, my understanding. And also I hear a lot of people who have more knowledge about AI and technology than I do. They are optimistic, even if AI may take some jobs, it creates new jobs. Even if AI may take these routine and boring jobs, humanity may evolve, go to the next level to do more meaningful work. And also I see that the people who are going to succeed are the people who are going to use AI, and people who may lag behind and be, disadvantaged going to be the people who may not use AI. And I'm glad you mentioned about AI being part of the curriculum in every higher education. I remember I touched computer 1999. I know it's just crazy. I remember I was just finishing, almost 1 year left to finish my education, and I was exposed to computer in the college. And I remember how much that impacted me. When I finished I think I finished the college and I went for, we call it internship. No, we say externship, because my first degree was veterinary. And I went to be mentored by an international scientist in an international research organization. And I went to a lady to type my proposal, and I brought him a printout proposal. He just critiques it, and they say, change all of this and bring me now. And I say, no, I have to go to the lady. She has to change this all to, maybe I will bring it tomorrow. He said, no. You have to change this now and bring it back. And I said, I don't know how to type. He was like, what? You don't know how to type? I said, yeah. He took me. I still appreciate him for dragged me, put me in an empty office, gave me a computer. He told me, I don't know how you're going to learn this. I don't want you to go to the lady to type it. I want you to do it. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I never typed. I know I had exposure to computer, but I didn't know how to type fast, to use a computer, to format, and so on. I felt bad. I should have been exposed to computer long time ago. Because of that, I was embarrassed. And you're right. Every student should be exposed to AI, and they should be able to play with it as soon as they join higher education.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to challenge myself as, as somebody who was not a digital native per se, but who I'm in awe of and appreciate all the technological advancements that we do have, but even find myself a little bit resistant to change. Like, what is this AI? How are we using it? And as somebody who loves to create my own things, like I love to write, I love to, create ideas. I like to come up with my own stuff. It feels foreign to work with a machine to do that, but I'm really trying to force myself to keep an open mind about it all, learn as much as possible so that I'm not left behind. Because I think it's very easy to say, well, the invention of the computer, which was within my lifetime, or the internet, well, those were all things that we take for granted now, and we should embrace those. But AI is different. But no, this is just another technological advancement that we have to force ourselves to think critically about, responsibly about, but ultimately to try to embrace as the inevitability that it is in this world that we live in.
Yeah, I see the positive all around in my personal life, my career, my business, multiplying my productivity. And it's a plus for our civilization. And I think universities and higher education, they should be able to help their students and their community to leverage AI more so that we could do more with less.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of AI. I want to talk about higher education and how it may play a positive role in terms of job or workforce readiness, entrepreneurship, international development. What are some of the contribution higher education has in terms of preparing people for workforce, entrepreneurship, international development, and so on?
Well, I think you have a couple of different, the answer to that question is just multiple. But a few things that I can point, because I think higher education is really critical for preparing students to enter the workforce, for them to just thrive in their lives and careers. And that's not just young people, but education, higher education is a lifelong endeavor. And can even help throughout the lifetime in terms of helping individuals make transitions from different career paths, and so forth. So this is a really fundamental and foundational aspect of life that I think is can be so helpful at different periods. There's of course the very like specific professional, relational things from what you study at in higher education to where you go in your career. And I think that's of course one aspect of higher education. But there are so many other aspects that of what you receive from a higher education that you take with you throughout the rest of your life into your career, into whatever entrepreneurial endeavors you might do, even into your personal life. This is things I've mentioned before, like critical thinking and asking questions, and the kind of interpersonal relationships that are harder than anybody thinks, communication, adaptability. These kinds of things are all part of the higher education experience, and they're kind of bolstered by specific experiences that one can have through higher education. In my field, we argue that something like education abroad or global engagement in some way are a high impact practice that can help you gain those kinds of skills even faster or in a more deep way, that help you, again, in your career, but also in other aspects of your life. When you think about, and you, AZ, have experiences of going to another country and having to adapt, to learn another language, to deal with your time in a new way, to kind of have that maturation process happen in this very quick and deep way. Those are all things that you take with you for the rest of your life into your career. I think about, the skills that I have as an entry-level person all the way up to being a leader, and all of them come back to these slightly more intangible skills like adaptability, working in teams, communicating with others, that I really attribute to my time at college and university, as well as specifically to my education abroad experiences.
You brought an important point, which reminds me of why I wrote a book called Softer Skills That Make or Break Your Success.
Yeah.
As an IT guy, as a researcher, I was good at technical stuff. I do research, I know how to troubleshoot. I was great in terms of dealing with computer servers, but I was struggling with humans because I lacked softer skills. And once I worked on my softer skills and I could be able to see the change, and then I said, you know what, I have to write this book. What you mentioned about all of these softer skills that you mentioned, adaptability, communication, empathy, emotional intelligence, all of these things are important, and higher education should help students to be ready for work. Because if you think about it, the statistics is very shocking. It says that 85% success comes from softer skills and attitude. Only 15% comes from know-how and technical skills. And I have seen it all the time. And I remember a research that I saw, which says that within the first 18 months, first hires, 46% of first hires were fired in that research.
Wow.
Within 18 months, 46% of them. Out of 46% of them, 89% of them were fired because of lack of attitude, soft skills. Only 11% because of lack of technical skills. And if you think about it, somebody could be able to quickly learn how, for example, in my case, within a day, I could be able to format Word and could be able to edit my own Word. That was fine. But developing communication skill, adaptability, crossing cultures, and having cultural intelligence, it may take you years. And the best place to help people to be ready for the work, ready for innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship is on the side of technical skills. They should be empowered on how to communicate in front of the camera, how to communicate with people from other cultures, other backgrounds, stuff like that. Let me ask you this question. In terms of higher education, I just want to know where the focus is. I have my own intuition and a bit of exposure, but you are in the midst of higher education. do you think the focus is more on technical overall, on average, when you look at higher educations? Are they more focused on technical skills, or do you think they're balancing between soft skills, leadership skills with technical know-how and skills? From your personal assessment.
It's a good question, and my answer can only be really anecdotal, like you say, just on my own observations. I do think that it is more focused on the technical, just because there is that race to make sure that the return on investment pans out for a student, that they're what they're paying for, especially in the United States with this higher education, that does see some results in terms of getting a job. And I think there is a lot of focus on the technical skills related to what you need. I think that's probably also exacerbated within more of the STEM fields and the STEM disciplines, whereas within the humanities, it is, of course, also technical skills in terms of your knowledge, but it is natural within those disciplines to also be infusing some of these more like softer skills, like critical thinking and communication and so forth. I think that I have seen some good examples of, especially in STEM disciplines, more of the humanities or more of these soft skills being infused, but maybe not on as much of a large scale as we might want to see. And I think in general, higher education institutions would do themselves a favor by being a little more intentional about how those softer skills are being infused into the curriculum and into the higher education experience in general. Because like you said, I'm not saying it's easy to learn all the technical sides of things, but I'd say it's even harder to learn some of these, quote, softer skills that I would argue aren't soft skills at all. They're the really hard ones.
Yeah. That's the challenge I had when I was coming up with the title of the book. A lot of people gave me feedback. Actually, these skills are harder than the technical skills. But overall, we understand when we say softer skill, people understand what I mean. That's why I kept that title. But you're right. When I research and see what kind of skill sets corporations and the marketplace looking for, always the top 10, all of those skill sets that you mentioned, they're the top 10, like critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, emotional intelligence, communication. When you look at there, you don't see like AI knowledge or computer knowledge. They are important, but many, I would say most organizations, if you present to them two people who are qualified, who have the same qualification in terms of academics, in terms of technical skills, I'm sure they will take the person who has more non-technical skills, soft skills, intangible skills, human skills. And if I want to help my students to get ready and succeed in the workplace, if I have to do extracurricular components of my curriculum, I should add those. I remember when I was traveling to Ethiopia, it was a couple of years ago, and I was talking to, I don't mention the name of the organization, but they are one of the largest private universities that do healthcare. They invited me to speak to the doctors, the nurses about soft skills. And when I talked to them, the leadership, they realized that many of their graduates struggle when they go out, having some legal issues. They're great in terms of treating the patients, handling people in terms of overcoming disease, stress, stuff like that. What they struggled was handling the emotions of their patients. Some of them didn't have that emotional connection with their patients and mistreating people unintentionally. And they were having so many complaints, so many legal complications. And they say, you know what, we need to work on this one. They invited me to provide keynote and then also to provide a 2-day workshop. And I'm sure many higher educations by now understand the importance of these intangible human and softer skills. And I'm glad that you say that these are important to contribute towards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think they only get more important as you grow in your career, as you take on more management and leadership roles, as you know well in your work. I
Yep.
think,
Yep.
it's one thing to kind of be good on the technical level and do some, kind of your basic work. But as you grow in responsibility, that only means working with more and more people and humans. And that
Yep.
only means that you are required to be that much more, emotionally intelligent and self-aware and empathetic, and all of the great things that we know about good leaders. And that's stuff that I don't know if you can really teach. I think a lot of it has to come through experiences, but there's an intentionality that you can add in there, that higher ed institutions can add in there, whether it's specific experiences that students should have on campus, or whether it's supporting more education abroad experiences. I think those are the places where you really build up those leadership skills.
Yeah, definitely. There are some self-assessments. If students take some of the self-assessments, at least like you mentioned, to have self-awareness, to understand their preferences, their styles, and to understand that people have different styles, preferences, and also if they send them to the world, to the outside world, to communicate and give them assignments, for example, to tackle some of the customer service issues or something like that. You're right, it should be practical. I mean, you cannot teach someone, yeah, you give them some tools, frameworks, but at the end of the day, they have to go out and practice, and it takes years. But the students should have that platform initially to start to develop that, because I meet a lot of people, I see them. I can give you so many examples. I go out to provide trainings to some government agencies, corporations, and I meet some people and they tell me that, oh my gosh, especially when they see that I'm an immigrant and they see me providing these softer skills, leadership trainings, they ask me, how come you could be able to do that? And they tell me that they couldn't be able to climb the corporate ladder. They couldn't be able to influence and so on. My question always has been, have you worked on your communication? Have you taken some leadership roles, some voluntary work? Because you won't be able to be promoted. You won't be given platforms. I'm sure you are promoted and given these higher level executive roles. I believe you have the technical abilities and skills about higher education, but I'm sure the people who promoted you, gave you these higher executive level roles, they know your emotional intelligence, your communication. All of these are softer skills and leadership skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the big not secret about my career path is that I am in this field of international higher education, but I've actually never worked at a university. And at some point in my career, I felt kind of insecure about that it was a big gap. And I still think it's something that I wish I had under my belt. I wish I had had that experience. But like you say, it's that kind of slight shortcoming is, I think, more than made up for through other skills of what I have been able to do, which is talk to people, listen, try to develop a bigger understanding of the higher education experience through active listening, through research, through just having like one-on-one conversations, visiting campuses all over the world, and kind of working to connect the dots and aggregate all that information in my head to develop my own, perspectives and lived experiences about higher education that aren't equal to having worked on a campus, but I think provide a different type of offering in my role.
In the past, I worked with researchers, and when I look at the leaders of these researchers, the top one, the leaders one, they many of them, they never actually wrote peer-reviewed journals.
Uh-huh.
They didn't. But what I see is they're good in communication. They know how to build a team. They know how to connect with people.
Yeah.
And those off-chart scientists, researchers, they always put these guys actually
Mhm.
at the first row as the
Mhm.
main author. They
Mhm.
don't do the technical stuff, but they put them at the front. And the other technically expert researchers and scientists, they become co-authors.
Oh,
And
interesting.
when these papers are presented on major platforms, those guys who didn't do the technical stuff, but they know how to communicate that. They have a name, they have a brand, they have
Yeah.
connection, partnership, and they are the one presenting those papers. And I was sitting there seeing that. I said, oh my gosh. I saw the difference. I said, you know what? I have enough technical skills. Now this is time to focus more on what pays the bill, what gives you more platform and more influence, which is the softer skill and the leadership part. Let's talk about how higher education cultivates the character of their students. When you think about leaders coming out of higher education, they have a lot of opportunities. They can influence for good or bad.
Yeah.
The question is, how do higher education institutions cultivate ethics? For
Mhm.
example, how could they generate and raise leaders who are ethical, who have integrity, empathy, people who cross cultures, who have cultural intelligence, who could be able to create partnerships, alliances around the world to tackle dire challenges of humanity, their country, and their community. Do you have any suggestions on cultivating the next generation leaders in
Wow.
higher education, higher institutions who have character, integrity, empathy, and the ability to cross cultures?
It is. That's such a tall order, and I have sympathy for higher education institutions who are expected to do all of that and create these ethical, responsible, engaged citizens of the world. I think that they higher education institutions are still our best bet at producing such human beings. I think there's something about education generally, but especially the kind of the higher education levels that really do have an opportunity to instill those aspects into its students. I think it can be everything from an entire ethos of the institution and all the way down to an individual professor or experience. I think that we as humans we're always touched by and kind of remember things on these bigger levels of kind of how I felt at that institution, as well as these one-on-one experiences with that particular person, that professor, that administrator that really touched my life, that really, taught me this thing or shared with me this lesson about XYZ. I've had both experiences. So I went to Georgetown University undergrad, and it was both a kind of big picture endeavor of the whole institution being a Jesuit one has an ethos of men and women for others. So that idea and that kind of moral compass is infused into the whole campus and into the whole kind of operation, which I always very much appreciated. So there's that kind of a way of doing it, as well as the trickle down effect of like, you can have this amazing big motto or way of doing things, but every single interaction from kind of the administration and leadership all the way to the faculty and other aspects of a campus also have to kind of be on board and be teaching those ideals, teaching those ways of being, both kind of like in their teaching, but also just in the way that they act in an ethical way, trying to challenge students on an individual level to kind of be the versions of themselves that they want to see in the world. And I think truly talented teachers and professors are able to do that and model that behavior, and make sure that the students that they are teaching come out not only with this great new knowledge and the ability to think critically and to kind of be a productive part of society, but also to be doing it with these kind of moral, philosophical, and ethical attitudes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I love what you say, which is the professors and the community in higher education setting the model and setting the example. Yes, you may have some topics maybe inculcated into the curriculum about ethics, integrity, and other character attributes. But at the end of the day, students will learn more from seeing their professors, maybe inviting some key community leaders who have great character, maybe inviting them to these institutions for the student to learn. I think as humans, one of our qualities, I would say one of our competitive qualities compared to AI is because we have character. Sometimes I ask AI to give me a paper or to improve my resume. Sometimes the AI just lies and a high fat resume, and I was educating initially. Now it doesn't do it, but I was educating. No, no, no. Why are you saying this? Because I don't have that experience. No, I didn't go to that school, and so on. Why? Because we humans, we have this built-in character, and we need to improve that. That's how we can live in harmony. That's how we can collaborate and advance, and that's why we're better than AI or robots. And that should be done in higher educations. Before we finish, I want to talk about the future prospect of higher education. As you know, right now, I'm very optimistic, but you see some signs of tension and countries, cultures trying to uh, stay isolated and feeling competitive, stuff like that. Seeing into the future, what kind of future do you see in higher education? Would you see more collaboration or more isolation, or what kind of future prospect do you have for a higher education?
Well, I don't claim to know the future of our higher education ecosystem, but what I can hope for and what I can hopefully see the inklings and startings of is one where higher education as an institution is part of the fight against isolation. And I think that is kind of for those of us in this industry, in this ecosystem, it's part of our responsibility to kind of help fuel the energy behind that fight of we want to see a more interconnected world. We want to see more partnerships. We believe that, especially in the higher education sector, we all need each other more, and we can do more together than we could do alone. I think this is certainly still the trend. There are many obstacles and challenges that we have to work through, but this kind of shrinking of the world in some ways, where there's more collaboration than isolation, that I think is the natural way we're heading. And we just have to be kind of good stewards and kind of galvanizers of that progress.
From your perspective, what kind of mindset or attitude, mentality do you think leaders of higher education, global educators should have so that there will be more collaboration, more integration, and more alliances among higher education members?
I think it's both these kind of loftier ideas and attitudes of keeping an open mind, understanding that this world that we live in is so big and we all have things to offer and should all have seats at the table. And that, this idea that, we can do more together than we could do alone. But I think also leaders in higher education need to put on their business hats as well and realize that this collaboration, the partnerships, the integration of our higher education system is also good for business in many ways. This is actually probably what's going to help keep higher education a relevant and thriving business as well into the future. So thinking of it from both of those angles, I think will be a really key mindset to have as we move into the future.
Before we close, do you have any last minute comment or a story or suggestion to higher education professors, students, and higher education leaders?
I think I would just say that, you know, the specific business that I'm in, the international education leadership world, is so much more important than you might think. If you're listening to this and you are on a campus, check to see whether you have somebody at your institution who would think of themselves as the senior leader for internationalization on your campus. Maybe it's a vice rector for internationalization, or a vice president for global engagement, or an executive director of a center for internationalization. These people are so critical for the future of higher education because they are overseeing and helping to connect the dots and strategize about what your institution's global footprint looks like, how that is infused into the institution, and how it's connecting with the rest of the world. So I'd just say connect with those people on your campus. Let them know about this association, AIEA, which is really the professional home for such international education leaders. And I'll just put in a shameless plug for our really important annual conference that happens once a year in Washington, D.C. We'll be having our 2026 conference from February 16th to 19th. This is a gathering of all of those international education leaders from around the world. And we'd really love to continue to expand that community and make sure that these senior leaders who can sometimes, be a little bit lonely at the top, that they have this network of peers who they can turn to, especially during these challenging times.
Yeah, I encourage everyone, if you are in higher education, this is a wonderful opportunity to come and network and create partnerships and also support the institution February 2026. I encourage everyone to go there. How can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
I welcome all connections. I'm big on LinkedIn. I really enjoy interacting there. So Clare Overmann, you can search for me. And you're welcome to reach out directly. I'm at c.overmann@aieaworld.org, and would love to stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Claire, for being here, by taking out time to come here out of your busy schedule. Everyone who watched it live, and also those of you who are going to watch the replay, thank you very much. We encourage you to like, share, and also subscribe to our channel. Until I see you with another interview, have a great day and see you soon. Bye.